How's it going, everybody? My name is Devin Christie. I am in the Bachelor's of Science program for Exercise Science at Phys University, and today we will be talking about body composition. So, how is it my friend here, Josh, can be 5 feet 10, 220 pounds, and my friend Serge Newbray here, bodybuilder from the 1970s, can also be 5 feet 10 and 220 pounds, but look completely different? This all comes down to body composition. All right, body composition. What is it? So, experts like to look at our bodies in two different ways when we're talking about exercise. So, we tend to look at our bodies as having a fat component and having a fat free component. Now, our fat component is exactly that it is what percent of us is fat, and our fat free component will be everything else our muscle, our bones, our cartilage, everything else that makes up our body that isn't fat. Now, why is this important? For years now, we've been using BMI to identify at-risk populations. Now, that is our weight in kilograms divided by our height in meters squared. We would get this number to put in our chart and identify these at-risk populations. But we're finding out that that doesn't account for everybody. People with high amounts of muscle mass are going to be higher on this scale when actually not at risk for diseases. And actually at the opposite end of the scale, we can have somebody who doesn't weigh very much but be very high in body fat percentage and not show up as at risk for diseases, but might be actually at a very high risk. Now, when we're talking about this fat mass, keeping an overall low percentage is important, but the location is also important. We've separated this into two different categories. So we have our android obesity, which is an apple shape. You can see the fat is more around the abdomen area. And then we have our gynoid obesity, which is a pear shape, and you can see the fat collects more around the hips and the thighs. Now, what's interesting when you look at these two types of obesities is that in the android obesity, the apple, or where you store fat around the abdomen area, you are at much higher risk for hypertension, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and many more diseases. There was one study that followed around a group of individuals for 10 years and found out at the end of the study that people with a high waist circumference or a large waist were at twice the risk for premature death. What are some ways you can attack your body composition and get into the best beach body shape of your life? Well, the biggest thing you're going to be looking at is calorie intake versus calorie expenditure. Now, your calorie expenditure is going to be made up of three different things. You're going to have your basal metabolic rate, you're going to have your thermic effect of food, and you're going to have your physical activity. Now, the first way to attack this expenditure is through the BMR. You can improve your BMR, which is your calories that you're spending throughout the day to perform normal functions. You can improve this with resistance training. That's right, my favorite, resistance training. The more muscle that you have, the more calories you are going to burn throughout the day. It will take more calories to run your body throughout the day just doing nothing. You don't even have to move. You will burn more calories throughout the day. Now, the next way to attack this expenditure is through physical activity. Now, we talked about resistance training already. That's going to account for maybe 200 calories in a hard session. The best way, if you're looking to improve body composition, will be through aerobic exercise. Once you have been performing aerobic exercise for an extended amount of time, your body will run out of the glucose, the readily available glucose to use for energy, and will begin to use fatty acids and break down the fat in your body to use as energy. Now, this is what we're looking for when we're looking to improve our body fat percentage. Now, the next way we can add imbalance to this intake versus expenditure is to cut away from our intake. Take a look at our diet. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to go on a crazy diet and go on some crazy keto or Atkins diet. This means that maybe you could cut 100 calories from your diet, add 100 calories to your physical activity, and then you've created a 200 calorie deficit with just two minor changes. Now, the best way to add to this imbalance is going to hit from all areas at once. You're going to cut a little from your diet. You're going to add some physical activity, and you're going to add the resistance training to improve that BMR, the basal metabolic rate. From there, from these three things, you will begin to see drastic changes in your body composition. So there you have it. That's body composition. Today we have talked about the two different components to that. We have our fat component, and then we have our fat-free component. Our two different types of obesity. We have android and gynoid. And then we talked about the multiple different ways that you can attack your own body composition and get in the best beach body shape of your life. Or to get on stage and compete in your first physique competition.